Well, a new sucker is seemingly born every single minute. And for some reason, they all want to buy real estate in Canada. I personally would never buy a pre-sale unit, but others out there just seemingly can't figure out how poor of an investment they can be if indeed the market takes a turn in the direction that it has this past year. For some reason, investors love tiny, itsy bitsy, small little units, and for some other reason, they want to rent them out to college students with no incomes. And they end up buying a unit based off of square footage rather than a good, livable floor plan that will not only be easier to sell in the future, but will also garner a higher dollar. So in today's video, I'm going to show you 3 different one-bedroom layouts that might be an option that you would see or something similar to when looking at pre-sale units or even resale units out there in the marketplace. And I'll explain to you why I wouldn't even touch 2 of them at all with a 10-foot pole, while the other floor plan is probably the one that my team and I tend to sell most often to first-time buyers looking to purchase their first homes here in Surrey near the SkyTrain, which then opens you up to a whole second class of buyer, not just the future investor, but also the end user. So if you're out there looking for an investment property or your first place, follow along today. And of course, if you need help with the real estate market anywhere in Greater Vancouver, you can book a call with me using the link in the description below. Then just go ahead and click the like button and subscribe so we can hop into these floor plans with a little added preamble of the fact that units like these ones can be bought for much less today on the open resale market. And then to buy one at a pre-sale center, you're going to pay more, and it's most likely the rents that the developer is telling you you're going to get when the project is finished, well, those are likely estimated quite high and currently trending downwards. Why do they do this? Like, why might they mislead you into thinking this is the best investment at this rent, or this is the up and coming area, or this is the investment strategy you use? Well, it's because the developer and their sales agents, they don't work for you. They're the sales team, not a fiduciary like me. They share their loyalty to the development, and they are in the business of selling units, as opposed to hiring an agent for yourself who is then required by law to put their clients' interests ahead of their own, pointing out what is good and bad while walking you all the way through the entire purchasing process. For example, here is the first one-bedroom floor plan that I personally would talk you out of if you were looking to buy a property. This is not even, I personally don't think this should be called a one bedroom at all. They are called one bedrooms. They're most often these days referred to as junior one bedrooms. What does a junior one bed mean? Or what does a junior anything means? It's not a real one. That's what it means. And this floor plan actually kind of sucks so bad that you can't even label it correctly. You can see half of the names are wrong. How about if I do this? Can this help? Maybe I can shrink it down. We can try to see what happens here. You walk in the front door. Of course, there is a cloak room or closet or whatever you want to call it, a coat closet, I guess you would call it, on your front side there. This foyer is not a foyer, it is a hallway. Let's get that clear. You have a washer and dryer and then more closet space off to the side. But this is a tight little hallway. Immediately walking in, there's the washroom. On the side, a 4-piece standard. That's all you're going to get in a little unit like this. This is about 500 square feet or so, just for a little bit of reference. Now, here's why I absolutely hate these units. Not only do you not get a proper bedroom, like they have a walk-in closet, sure, let's call it that. It's going to also be your storage room, but you're going to have a walk-in closet here, and then literally your bedroom, which is basically, let's call it 8 by 8, which is barely a bedroom. Not a bedroom because it doesn't have walls. It has sliding glass doors that you close off if, I don't know why you would ever close them off. I guess if you want to have a friend sleep over in your living room, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. So these are sliding doors, and then your kitchen is literally a hallway, right? So this is your fridge. This is your dishwasher, your sink. You've got about this much prep space, let's call it, for I don't know. I mean, that's, I guess, where you cut your vegetables before you put, I guess, on top of the dishwasher, to be fair, is also a little bit of prep space. So you've got this tiny little bit of counter space, and your microwave's built into the pantry here. So that is your whole kitchen. And that is 5'5". That's from this wall over to this wall. So you've got about a 2 or 2.5 feet or maybe 3 feet of cooking space for you to do your cooking or whatever you're going to do. Now, I understand this is an entry level product. There's not a lot of people. These are not built for people that are going to be stay at home cooking foodies. I get it. But I'm also coming from an area in Surrey where this isn't exactly a bustling downtown New York neighborhood, downtown Toronto, downtown Vancouver. You're not getting most of your meals out. You're still living in the suburbs. You're at the end of the train line currently. So, I mean, kitchen still extremely important space if you were to ask me. Maybe not for some other people, but for me, absolutely. Then you end up with this tiny little dining, living, whatever you want to call it, one big open space area. Generally speaking, what I find, you'll notice the balcony door opens here, and then you have some extra windows. So most people are going to set up their TV here. They're going to end up with a couch or two or something, some sort of configured setup here, and then maybe a small table. But usually my experience is these people that buy this floor plan end up living with, I mean, they're eating off of, in reality, they're eating off of their coffee table, because it's just a tiny little, not very well laid out area. If you look at this entire thing, this is what, 10 feet wide. Is a very small unit. It will be labeled as a junior one bedroom, which means a studio with a couple of glass walls. I just think unless you can absolutely avoid this type of product, this is what you're going to get baited into the sales center with a one bedroom unit. And it's really no good. Now, let's go on to the next one, which is the one bed and den. Now, if I had to pick between the two, obviously this is actually a very large square footage. So now you're actually going up to one bed and den pricing, but I don't think you're going to get the benefit of the actual one bed and den that you would think of or that you would expect. If you work from home, maybe this is an option because you want that particular den space, but I'm going to point out again why I'm not necessarily a big fan of this. I would go for it over the last one, but the price point, because the square footage is going to be about 10% or more higher, you're going to see why it may not be the best. And that is, you walk in, you now lose that closet, that first closet, and the second is very much similar to the last one. The bath, again, is off to the right, and again, it's a 4-piece, very small bath. You do get the benefit here of this 6x6 den, which is going to be your work from home space, or for a lot of people, storage. Unfortunately, we're even seeing some people using this as a second bedroom now. Also, watch out, they might, in new developments right now, call this a junior 2-bed. So junior 2 beds with one bath is really a one bed and den, just so we're totally clear out there. But the reason no, let's focus on the positives first. I do like that you have a proper dining space. It is big enough for a table. You could set up a table. You could have a few friends over, and then you could not only have a 4-seater table here, you could also have, you're probably going to put your TV, flat screen TV across this wall if you have one, and then you're also going to have seating. And it's not that bad. But again, what I'm going to go back to is I really dislike this kitchen hallway setup. You end up with, again, this fridge. You end up with a dishwasher, which is great. Double sink. I guess you need a double sink in this big of a space. I'm not sure why. And then your stove. Now, this one, you lose that built-in pantry that the other one had. So you're probably ending up with some sort of a, instead of a built-in microwave, some sort of a countertop microwave, which I guess you need now space for. The benefit here is you do end up with a proper bedroom with a swinging door and a closing door and a closet. So you're ending up with all this extra bonus space of which you could actually then close off. So if you really were in a stretch and you had a guest from out of town, you could set them up and actually have some proper separation rather than just glass walls. But the thing that would pull me back from this is you're paying for the extra square footage. You're not really seeing a massive benefit, and you're still getting a really crappy kitchen layout. Now, those are the two that I'm going to poo-poo on. Now, let me show you the one that I probably sell most often to our clients and that I am a big fan of. Now, you'll notice how small the square footage is here. This only measured at 479 square feet. So if you can buy it, you're probably still going to pay more actually than the larger junior one bed that was there, but this is laid out way better in my estimation. I would personally prefer this. The only thing I think it's missing is kind of that front entry closet. It does have it here because you are going to have your front entry closet beside your washer and dryer, but you lose that separate space. It's also going to be, I guess, what I would consider maybe your pantry if you necessarily had one. But here's why I like it. So you have a proper foyer. So your door swings open and you have a proper foyer. And you know what? You could walk out the door. And if somebody was in the hallway, walking down the hallway at the same time, and your partner or your friend was in the living room in their underwear, they're around the corner, right? Like this is just, it's proper foyer. You can have someone walk in the door and it's not trying to funnel them down uh, a little hallway in order to push them out the door when your guests are gone. Not that you're going to have that many guests in this tiny little unit. But then we end up with an L-shaped kitchen and it's in a great room concept. I love this. So you're going to end up here with, this is actually where your refrigerator is. You have all this countertop space here. The range, all this countertop space here. If I remember correctly, it's not actually noted here, but the dishwasher is actually on this side. And then you have obviously upper cabinets all the way around. So you end up with all this prep and counter space, all this prep and counter space. Sometimes these are actually, I believe on this side, if I remember correctly, is pantry, and all this prep and counter space. But now we have a space where you can bring in an island of your own after the fact, and you can actually end up with maybe 2 bar stools, and you can now entertain in your kitchen like a real human being wants to do, and you're not feeling like you're in one of those quote unquote dog crates in the sky. Now, the dining room is not necessarily massive. When I have sold this, most often what I see is there's actually a, I guess what you would refer to like a round eating table, dining table, you would call it, and it's kind of pushed off to the side. If it was me, I might do that. The other option is to push a 4-seater square table right up to this dining room area and kind of have it out of the way. I will say I think there is a flaw in this floor plan, and the flaw in this floor plan is I do believe the slider opens the wrong way. I would love it if the slider opened in the middle, and the reason for that is now you could have a walking path and you could have a chair possibly, and you don't just have to leave this side open. So right now you're going to have a TV mounted against this wall, and then you're going to have this open so you can get outside to your patio. If this was in the middle, you could put something here. You could even have a dresser, storage, more seating, whatever you wanted, and you could actually be opposing each other. What I have seen is a small table here, an office or desk built into this space, and then the couch and an armchair, and you have enough space kind of for everything. And then, of course, heaven forbid, you actually have a proper bedroom, again, swinging door, double closet, enough room for a queen size bed if you want one, heaven forbid, maybe even a king, but it would be super tight. And then windows, not only out into your patio, but a window outside as well. So this is like a very livable, very small square footage. And if you were buying only on square footage, most people are likely going to opt for this other one, and you can tell why those just are not livable plans. And if you end up with an unlivable plan, sure, that's fine because you don't really care about your tenant, I guess. You don't really care if you have a nice livable unit for your tenant to be in long term. You're going to have higher turnover with your tenants, and you're going to eliminate the end user buyer at the end of the day. There are very few people that are at all interested, if they're buying for themselves, to get into a junior one bed or a studio apartment or a hallway kitchen. They're just not interested at all. And if you're interested in more tips about how to avoid buying the wrong condo floor plans, check out this video right now.